held my hand, grandfather, when I was very young, and taught me to sing the songs that you have sung. You taught me to see, grandfather, the things that you have seen, not as they are, but as they should be. You told me the stories, grandfather, so I may tell my young of the strength of the bear and the greatness of the buffalo run. You walked me down the trailways, grandfather, that you have walked, so I may feel the drum beats and the swiftness of the hawk, so I may feel the power of the moon and the warmth of the sun. You held my hand, grandfather, when I was very young. Listen.
How you doing? My name's Thad Beckham, and I'm here in southeast Georgia at my primitive village where I teach primitive skills. You know, lately there's been a lot of interest in primitive culture and survival and primitive skills. You see it all in the media, on television, and countless shows on such things. I mean, all the way to the Hollywood stuff. Just a whole lot of interest in primitive culture. I think a lot of it is because of society being so modern nowadays. A lot of people's looking for something different. I've always been interested in primitive cultures and primitive living, primitive tools, that type of thing. Even when I was a kid collecting arrowheads, it just fired this fire in me that I wanted to know about how people lived and how they made things and how they used things. And you're learning about a whole lifestyle. It's something you're not going to learn in 1 or 2 days, but it's really interesting stuff. And it's mankind's history. It's not just one race of man's history. It's everybody's legacy, you might say. Everybody can trace their ancestry back to making stone tools like this knife blade I got here. I don't care where you're from. Everybody did flint knapping. If you lived in a cold climate, everybody did brain tanning. It's just, something people had to develop. I don't care if you're from Europe or North America or where you're from. And if you're from a tropical environment, you did friction fire and primitive bows, and that, it just goes on and on. Everybody did these things. there seems to really be a really great interest in this stuff now. And I'm kind of glad to see it. I mean, it gives us a lot of stuff to look at other than just pure fiction. I mean, we're talking primitive skills. We're talking about reality. We're talking about what made our ancestors survive, and in effect is what made us, you know, is what created us basically, or you know, kept our species alive. This video we're doing is called Full Circle, and it's basically about making. It's friction fire, it's flint knapping, it's string making, it's several methods of fire making, it's brain tanning, making the buckskins like this right here, it's smoking and curing the meat, making primitive strings. It's a whole lot of things on here. And but mainly it's about philosophy. Mainly it's about why do you do this? Why would you do it? And it's about you know, creating a primitive bow and arrow and using it. And we actually take several whitetail does on the video with Stone Age gear, you know, using a primitive bow and arrow like you see back here with the stone point like you see here, which is a lot smaller. But still it's used to take animals on the video, and then we process the deer and smoke the meat and cure the meat, and we make the buckskins and the whole thing. And the whole reason behind this is to spark an interest in more people. Maybe you might see something on this video that you really enjoy. Maybe flint knapping. You think flint knapping is something you want to do. Maybe you want to make a primitive bow and arrow and hunt with it. They're highly deadly bow and arrows. I mean, and you can do it. Maybe you're tired of the modern stuff like I was, or seeing the way modern things was going. Maybe you just have that historic interest also like I had. So there's a lot of reasons to do this. I hope you see something in the video you really enjoy. I hope you see something you want to try to do. Maybe you want to try to do it all. You still can, and you can do it. Your ancestors did it, you can do it. And just watch the video and enjoy the video utmost, and have a good time with it. And thank you. You know, primitive bow and arrow has been around for, some people say, 12,000 years. It's funny though. The bow and arrow, the primitive bow and arrow, the self bow made out of a tree, and an arrow made from nature like this, people nowadays think that they're not effective. You know, they're not powerful enough, they're not accurate enough. Well, they work for, 12,000 years to kill just about everything in the world. You know, the ancient hunters' views was almost borderline religion. I guess some of it probably did have a religious base to it on how they approached hunting and how they viewed killing game. And I think we could do a lot to absorb some of that ourselves. A lot of the way you see hunting going down today, I mean, it leaves a bad taste in our mouth. And if you look at people that's not hunters, and not anti-hunters, the people that's in the middle, they don't really know which way to go. I mean, the way we hunt and the way we conduct ourselves in the field has a lot to do with the future of hunting and, you know, how people's going to perceive what we do. I think hunting with a primitive bow and arrow like this is respectable if you're not a slob hunter with it. I mean, if you're out there with this thing shooting at deer 40 yards away, I mean, that's not acceptable. You know, I know some good modern hunters that hunt with the modern archery that's really good ethical hunters, and they're really good hunters. I mean, they can kill deer, they can get on top of deer regular. I think they're missing out a bit because they're missing the wood lore, the wood smoke of being involved in something, the nostalgia part of archery, you know, what their ancestors experienced a bit. I think they missed that somewhat. But as far as saying primitive archery is not effective, and it's, you know, some of this is people's misled because of the modern manufacturers that say, you know, their bows are the only ones that's going to kill because they shoot so fast or they shoot so strong, and, you know, this is a toy and it's not going to do it. But that's a bunch of bunk. And you know, there's a lot of advantages to primitive archery. They're simple. I mean, simplicity. You can't deny the fact that simplicity is an advantage in a lot of ways, especially in hunting. Keep it simple, it'll work. It's quiet. I don't know if you heard a lot of these modern apparatuses made by NASA, you know, shooting, but they sound like two bricks hitting together, you know, or a cap gun or something going off. They're terrible sounding. They spook game. I don't care if they're shooting 500 feet per second. That's no good. This bow is shooting a lot slower, but you don't hear it go off. I mean, you know, the deer won't hear it until this thing's sticking in his side. And it's got plenty of power to kill game. I've killed 16 whitetails now with a primitive arrow and stone point and a self bow. And one of them happened to be a Pope and Young record book. I mean, that's no testimony on my behalf. It's just proving the effective quality of primitive archery, and that's what I had set out to do, to prove that the archery gear was effective and deadly and accurate. And it is. It's every bit of that in the right practice hands. You got to dedicate yourself to it, but, you know, it'll do everything you want it to do if you spend the time with it and create it right and use it right. Just because a guy says his modern bow and arrow shoots so fast or shoots so hard, that really don't hold water. I mean, you know, I can kill anything he kills with his primitive bow and arrow. Like I say, there's a lot of good modern hunters out there. I think they're just missing out on a lot of the experience of hunting. You know, the nostalgia of hunting is one reason I like to hunt. I mean, I think I'm hunting, you know, in ways that was done for centuries and for thousands of years. It goes on, and I like that feeling. I like the nostalgia of it. I guess nostalgia is just another way to say, you know, the spirit of hunting. A lot of people now, you hear people talk about Pope and Young. You heard this, me mention this buck, it made Pope and Young. This was the only Pope and Young ever recorded in the state of Georgia with Stone Age bow and arrow, with primitive bow and arrow. And I'm really proud to kill this deer. I like big trophy deer. I like shooting does. You know, there's nothing wrong with honoring this deer by mounting this deer. I mean, that's what I feel like I've done. I really mounted this deer, and I look at it all the time, and I remember to hunt and remember the deer. And I think if you just got the right outlook, I mean, I'm not out there to eliminate the deer herd, but I do like the sight of a big buck coming through the woods. I think every hunter does. I just wish more hunters had a little more history, you know, interest in archery. You know, it goes way, way back. With here in America, it starts with the two Confederate soldiers who were denied the use of firearms, and they made their own bows and arrows and eventually wrote a book about their hunting experiences, you know, in Florida and Georgia with the primitive bow and arrow, and that lit the fire for other guys like, you know, Art Young, Saxon Pope to get into archery. And Ishii come along, and all this kind of sparked their interest in, you know, Ishi being the last so-called wild Indian in North America, which he was a good bow maker and good archer and good hunter. And they learned all the stuff. They wrote it down, and it kept the fire lit. And guys come along like Howard Hill and Fred Bear. But I really don't think those guys intended for archery to wind up in the state that it's in today with all the technology that people use to perform what they call archery. Man, it's like a space age science nowadays, and I just can't handle it. But anyway, I think if you throw that stuff away and decide you want to do something more traditional, you know, it ain't got to be totally primitive, but decide you want to do something a little more challenging and add a little bit of nostalgia back into your hunting, you're going to get a whole new dimension to hunting. You're going to get a whole new feel to hunting, and you're going to be really proud of taking even a small buck. You know, I am. Every kill I make is a really proud kill, and I just hope you might take that step. And watching this video, I hope that'll make you think along those lines. Let's talk about cane arrows, southeastern cane arrows. These arrows right here, you see us use on the video, they're ancient. I mean, the oldest arrow ever found in the United States was a river cane arrow like this. Superb primitive arrow material. I'm gonna tell you, I'm really lucky to be able to get you know, this kind of quality shaft, and you can see this thing's really straight. It's a beautiful arrow. Really durable, just makes superb arrow. As far as primitive arrows, I ain't found. I've used some of the western stuff, osier and all that kind of stuff. It's not river cane. This stuff is naturally tapered. It's got the right weight. Man, it's just really easy to spine and get a good set of arrows that, I mean, I build them long and build them pretty much on the same type of nature the ancient arrows were built on. What you do, you go out and collect river cane, and you'll see on the video we're actually cutting the cane green. Now there's limber cane and there's stiff cane. Some people say it's female and male. I don't know, but you can reach up and you can feel and just flex the cane a bit, and you can tell the one that's going to season hard. There's a certain cane, if you see it's got a sheath of feathers that go up the shaft all the way. It's totally enclosed in a sheath of like a corn husk type thing. Those are usually really limber, and they're really hard to season and make a good durable arrow like this right here. I don't mess with them. I just cut the cane that's rigid, and I know it's going to season hard. The first thing I like to do, cane arrows wasn't always made with a foreshaft, a hardwood foreshaft like this. This piece of hardwood is scraped and tapered to go down to the joint here. They wasn't always historically made that way, but I think they make a better big game arrow. It gives your arrow a little more weight out front. It seems to fly better. It gives you something a little more durable to tie your flint point into. A good piece of hardwood is hard to beat. Tie this thing into it so it don't split. You can tie your arrowheads right into a joint. It's strong, it'll work, but I don't get a nice taper and smooth taper like I got right here. First thing you do to make foreshafts, you go out in the woods, you cut down saplings about a little larger because they're gonna shrink. when the moisture comes out of them. You season them just like you did the cane. Season ain't nothing but to set up, bundle this stuff up and set it up and let it dry, maybe a month or 2 months, sometimes 3 months. I usually give it about 3 months. They'll turn yellow like this, and then you'll straighten them. But the fore shafts are cut the same way. You cut some good hardwood saplings. They don't have to be straight. You just take the straight sections out of a long, sapling. And they don't all have to be the same size, because you can scrape them down, take the straight sections out, and scrape them down and fit them inside of this cane. Oak and hickory and all the good, hard, durable stuff can be used. It's just an unlimited supply of it already growing out there. Just cut your saplings and tie them together and season it. You can also take pieces of wood, small blocks of wood, and split off fore shafts and round them into dowels where you can insert them down to your cane. You don't want it sharp on down in here where it hits your joint. You want it blunt so it don't, knock the little membrane in there. There's a little membrane in there. It's pretty darn tough, especially after it seasons. But if that thing fits down in there blunt, it will not split your cane. It's also tied here. But just whittle it down with a flint flake. Take a piece of sandstone. You can use fire too to help you remove some of the bulk. Just stick it in there and char it, and take some moisture out of it. Kind of fire hardens the thing. And you'll see on the video where we'll work a fore shaft down and it goes down in the cane. You can spin it, and you sharpen this end so you can actually spin that raw shaft on your hand so it's spinning nice and pretty without a wobble. And once you get that, I usually take the fore shaft back out. I know I can get it back in the cane and get it spinning again because it's already been there. Then you want to cut your flint point in. You see on the video where I'm taking a flint knife and I'm cutting a notch. If the point ain't tight, and this point's tight as you can see, if the point ain't tight, then I'll wedge fiber in here and tighten it up. And if I need to move it this way, if I need to move it this way or that way, I'll wedge it on one side or the other with fiber. I'm saying fiber is little pieces of cedar bark or cypress bark that you can actually peel down almost like little tiny shims, almost of like 1/1000th of an inch thick, where you can shim and just push that point over one way or the other, this way or that way, and tighten it up. And then you can move it back into this way after it gets tight, and you can spin it and get it lined up. Now, this is my animal glue, and I'm just dripping it down in there, letting it run down into the point. It ain't nothing fancy. You see there? That's animal glue made from bowling. Deer skin, you make it out of tendon, fish skin, fish bladder. But it's always easiest to get large pieces of scrap, large pieces of deer skin that you can boil up. And you just boil the glue right out of the hide, and it's really strong. This glue here's a couple years old, but it's still as good as the day I made it. Now, here's the problem. Animal glue don't set up that fast. This will take a little while to set up. What I usually do is glue this. I mean, I don't put it on so thick that it's gonna take, a week to set up. But I got my glue down in there, and I'll just set it up and let it dry. Then I'll come back and pitch it. That's another real good pine pitch glue made from a local yellow pine here, and fire ash mixed with it. That's why it's got that funny color, but it's been some real good hafting glue right there for hafting points and knives and such. And you see this old used up knife I use for cutting fireboards. You can see it's just pure pitch inside there. You see the difference in color, but it's all glue. I mean, it all works. It's wrapped with tendon right over the top of all that glue. See, it just kind of goes all down in the cracks. Makes your little point more secure. A lot of time I'll break away all the extra that I don't need.
like I'm doing right now. I leave on just what I need. I usually do it just like this with my thumbnail. We got to wrap our point with the tendon. It's been soaking in the water here. You pull you out a nice piece and kind of squeegee it out. Take a little animal glue and put it on your shaft. I always coat it. Pretty good, because animal glue and tendon go together real good, and that really helps her get a grip. Now this is kind of a side notch thing, so I'm wrapping her like cross wrap, which it don't take a whole lot. Couple good wraps. You put tendon on, it always looks really crude when you first wrap with it, because it's all swollen up from being soaked in the water. But after it dries, it'll sink down, it'll shrink down and look really neat and clean. You'd be amazed at the transition it makes from that swollen up tendon look to a nice uniform dried look. What I do, I just splice in another piece right behind that one. I got the point wrapped on, and I wrap really good underneath the base of the point. That's to keep that point from splitting the cane, and believe me, it's going to be a hard job splitting that tendon. So I come right behind it and reinforce everything and wrap down everything with another piece of tendon. And I usually go about a 1/2 inch, and that's usually sufficient. You see my tendon's a little blunt. Well, I'll take a flake and make it kind of hairy. That one cut on me. Just make it kind of hairy, back it up a loop or two. And my last, you ain't got to do this, but I usually take a little bit of 1/2 hitch on the last wrap there, and now I just roll it into itself. Coat it in animal glue. You cut the whole thing down in animal glue, and it'll dry here shortly. Straightening the cane. When you straighten cane, you want to leave it long out here. Before you cut it off for your foreshaft, you want to leave it long so you got a little bit of leverage, because you need to heat it at every joint. You see where it's been pretty heated pretty extensively on every joint, but not enough to make it where it's, destroyed the integrity of the cane. You'll bend it at every joint. Then you'll come back in and heat in between the joints, and you're heating and bending and holding it until it cools, and then letting it go. And then you see another little bend in there that you need to straighten up. You heat it a little bit more and bend it and hold it. And I tell you what, cane arrows, when you straighten cane arrows, they stay straight. That's the gripe I got with other arrow material, primitive arrow material. You got to go back and periodically straighten those things. This shaft is probably 3 years old, and I ain't had to straighten it one time. And they just make superb arrows. That's another reason why cane is so good. But you can straighten cane, it'll stay that way. Now, cane has imperfections. To the untrained eye, or to a guy with a modern philosophy, he looks at these little indentions in the cane and he says it's not straight. Well, it is straight. It's straight from point to point. That's all you're really worried about with cane, is having it straight from the knock to the tip. And if it's straight and spins proper, it'll fly proper. Get my animal glue here, rubbing it on my foreshaft. This, by the way, is a really super strong glue. It's just not waterproof. You don't have to have a ton of it. Just want enough to get a grip, which it's doing already. Oh, I hope that's in the right spot. You have to really be careful with adjusting foreshafts, because you have to twist them and
and get everything to spin. It's not bad, but it could be a little better. There we go. Sometime the smallest move is still a little bit off. I mean, sometimes you don't move the thing, you're just twisting it a little bit and it's just lining things up. I mean, sometimes you're making the smallest little moves. There we go. You can feel the wobble, actually. If it's bad, you can feel it in the palm. You feel the vibration. You can feel it as well as you can see it. And just pay attention to that when you're spinning force shafts, flint points. Remember that vibration in that hand. And Rob liked that. Yeah. A little more glue on the force shaft and cane here. It'd help if I had a brush, but of course the stick works. The stick you ain't got to remake. Just break another one off. I got enough little tools I keep up with that get to be aggravating trying to keep up with them. It just takes some of this tendon, and I start right down here on the force shaft. The head's taken care of now. And just start wrapping. And I'll build it up to the height of the cane. See? And once I build it up to the height of the cane, then I taper into the cane. The blunt ends again are tapered, so they'll blend in without any ties or anything. Now what we got is that transition from smaller diameter hardwood force shaft. The cane the sinew kind of makes a transition to the larger cane for me without any blunt areas. And that's the way I do all my arrows right there. Now we got a feather. What you do, you start up front here. I split out a couple already today with no problem, and as soon as you get on video, that's when you're going to get your problem. Now we going. What I'm doing, I'm splitting away nothing but the fine sheath that holds the feathers on. I don't have much quill there. See, I'm just tearing away the feather without the pith on it. What I'll do now is come back and tear off. You got to have something here to wrap on the front end and the back end. Okay. Now on the back end, decide how long you want your feather. I figure about that long right there. I'm going to cut it off. I'm not measuring anything. I'll just make all three feathers the same. And cut it off right there. Now you can't pull the feathers off the back end. You're going to have to split them. And all you got to do is take the knife here and split off enough in the back where you got an area to tie in the front and the back. Now all I've got to do now is make two more to match this one. Your feathers, you got more sinew. You'll see I'll hold those feathers on and I'll get my sinew. Now you can wipe the shaft down in your animal glue before you start wrapping, but I'll tie myself. Everybody does everything a little bit different, but I tie my fronts down first. And I position them, 120 degrees roughly, apart. I hold it with all three fingers, just like I'm holding right now, and I wrap it. And then I take a long piece of tendon and I wrap all the way around spiral, all the way back here, and then lock it in. And then I can move
my feathers around before the tendon dries and get them just in the position I want them. If I got a little glue under them, you know, once that sinew tightens down and that glue dries, I mean, these arrows will shoot through a target and, you know, just continuously shoot through without pulling out or coming off or anything like that. Some of the nightmares you might see with just a glued on feather. And sometimes I wrap all the way out to the knock. This is the knock's just cut in. You'll see me cut it in the video with the Flint knife, and it's just cut in to fit your bowstring. Just be careful that you don't cut it too sloppy. It ain't got to be perfect, but just try to make a nice good fit to your particular bowstring. And you can wrap all the way to the end to reinforce the knock a bit. You'll see me do that on the video. I'll wrap it to reinforce the knock. It's not necessary. I've never had cane arrows, you know, split on me. They're really durable, super primitive arrows, and you'll see deer taken on the video with them. If you look here, you'll see some with obsidian heads, and one with a chert, kind of a yakking point, and one with the rhyolite point. All of them work. I've killed deer with all these types of points, and you know, just so long they're sharp and they're proportioned right, and they'll do the job. As far as adding a little color to your arrows, a little paint, I mean, this back end was done with berries, actually poke berries, for the sinew to soak up. Gives a nice little color. In the fronts were done with you know, pigment paints. So it gives you a real primitive look to your arrows, and makes them look like they should look. You know, have that old time look to them. I'm not a very good atlatl thrower. We just go throw and watch it sail. But this was pre-bow, used for big game and that kind of thing. Kind of an arrow spear combination. Really unbelievably powerful. Sinew back bow. Making a sinew back bow is a lengthy process. This is a cedar bow with a deer tendon backing. We cut this cedar stave out of a tree with a stone axe. We selected a straight section in the tree where we could get bow length, and we got more than we needed, width and length, so we could, you know, season the thing without any cracks being in it. And we chopped it out of there with a green stone axe. Then we had to let this piece of wood season. It was a pretty good chunk of cedar. We had a good job with drying the wood. We didn't get any cracks in the wood or anything, because I kept it out of the wood in the sun. That's a major thing to do when you're drying wood, is to coat the ends where you cut it, and get it out of the wind in the sun. And with certain type of woods, you know, like osage and cedar and stuff, you might want to leave the bark on it. With the white woods, like making a hickory bow, like this hickory self bow right here, I take the bark right off of it, and I usually just wipe it down with some fat or something. This is a complete self bow. I killed 4 or 5 deer with that bow. It's a really good bow. I can't remember, I think 4 or 5. I hunted with this old bow one time. This is a an Osage orange bow. You see how it's a D bow, and a lot of people looked at this thing and didn't believe that this was actually going to be a serious bow. But I killed 3 deer with this thing the first year I used it. But it's, you know, you work them a little bit different, you season them a little bit different. I leave the bark on the Osage. But anyway, when we got down to doing this thing, we kind of chopped it out and made a rough. We chopped it out with the hand axe. We did a rough layout to remove most of the bulk wood is what we was after. We cut it down so we didn't you know, remove too much wood. We still had plenty of wood there to take the hand tools and reduce it further and train it into being a bow. And kind of trued it up, and we got the wood rasp out and the scrapers, and we took away all the tool marks, and we removed the bark and everything completely off the back, so I could see what I actually had, if there was any ugly spots or knots or anything like that. Once we reduced off all the bulk of this thing, everything that wasn't going to be a bow, we started floor tillering. And that's basically just scraping enough till you get the limbs to bend. And you want the limbs to bend evenly, or somewhat even. You like the bottom limb a little stronger than the top limb because it gets a little more stress in use. But you'll see the floor tillering going on, and it's just long, pretty scrapes. Don't scrape in one spot because you'll hinge it, or you know, you'll get a weak spot in one area. Take long, pretty scrapes, and I like to sand in between, you know, when I'm doing my floor tillering. Well, once we got it floor tillered and the limbs are bending probably 4 inches or so, just enough, then you want to go ahead and apply your sinew backing, and the tendon needs to be pounded and stripped. What I'm doing, I'm processing a leg tendon here for sinew backing the bow. This is a piece I just pounded with the stone. You notice I'm using a rounded hammer stone here. I use the same stone for flint knapping. You're just pounding the fiber with something like that on a hard surface so you don't cut through the fibers. You got to pull this sheath off of the tendon. The tendon's inside of it. There's actually a couple of pieces, as you can see. The sheath holds everything. This is sinew. It's just hard to process and hard to strip up. If you run out of sinew, you could use this for backing bows. You can make glue out of this. You see me saving it. I'm saving it right here for making glue. I just started working a few tendons, and here's some of the fiber that's not completely processed, but that's what comes out from pounding. That's a pretty little piece. From pounding this whole hard tendon that was cut out of the leg of the deer into this processed fiber, and this has got to be processed even further if you want a nice, smooth, pretty sinew job on the back of your bow. By the time you finish all this, you'll be wondering why you even started. And you may be saying, darn, you know, the compound ain't so bad after all. Or you might even thinking your 30-06 is looking pretty good. But if you bear with it, you can overdo it, and you can overtake it, and you know, it'll be old for you, know it. Just bear with it. It's just tedious and boring, and a little bit of work, rough on your fingers. But a lot of primitive skills is like that. You just have to have perseverance to get through it, and a little patience. And I think that's qualities a lot of people lack nowadays. It's something to train yourself to have. I think it's a big advantage to have some perseverance and a little bit of patience. All right, we pretty well finished the job here. I'm going to strip this up a little bit finer. Of course, it's pounded and stripped, and it'd be a lot easier from this point to process it a little bit finer. You don't want to have to stop in the middle of the sinew backing and strip tendon again, so strip up plenty before you ever start your project. Then we had to make our glue, so you see us boiling tendon sheaths, some that we saved from when we pounded the tendon for the sinew backing. All the scraps off of that went in the pot. We just boil it in water. There was some rawhide scrapings in there from making buckskin clothes, just pure rawhide. We had some squirrel skin, I think, was in there. It don't really matter. Fish skin will work, bladder, any of that stuff will work. Just take it and boil it down until it releases its glue. It's really a strong, powerful glue. It just ain't waterproof. And that's what all this tendon was put on. You'll see us, I sized the back of the bow. I roughed the back of the bow first. The bow's just been floor tillered, that's all. You haven't put a string on this thing or anything. And you rough up the back of this bow so it's got a good grip to it. And then I take my hands and I rub glue all the way up and down this bow and sized it. And then you'll see me take the tendon in nice bundles, and it's fairly tapered. Nice fine tapers to the ends. And you'll see me soak it in water, and I'll squeegee out the water, and then I dip it down into animal glue and squeeze out the excess glue. You don't want too much glue, but you need enough glue. I do it a couple of times to make sure the threads are saturated with glue, but I got all the bulk glue out before I lay it down on the belly. And you lay it down end to end till you cover the whole bow. Then you come back in and put a bundle over your joints, kind of like stacking bricks. You know, you don't want any joints like this without a tendon bundle over the middle of that joint where they come together. And you just keep laying them down and laying them down till you get the whole back of this thing sinewed. The reason for the sinew backing is cedar's a little weak. Cedar don't have the strong backs like hickory and osage. You can make self bows out of hickory and osage. You don't want a sinew backing on them. The wood's too heavy for cedar, and sinew's heavy also, so you don't want to combine those two elements. They're too heavy and you'll lose cast. Your arrow won't shoot hard. With a light wood like cedar, a sinew backing gives it a strong back. It's a primitive fiberglass is what you've done in effect. You see how it's actually pulled that bow around backwards after it's been shot. This thing still goes backwards. You've put an actual recurve into your bow, or recessed into the back of your bow, which adds to the shooting quality of this thing. Sinew's some amazing material. You've actually put primitive fiberglass on it, and now that it's been shot, it still goes backwards. Once we sinewed back and got all the sinew on this thing, it had to dry for 2 weeks. I dried this thing inside out of the humidity in the air condition, because we done it during the heart of the summer here in Georgia, and I dried it under the air conditioner for 2 weeks, which it really works well for me doing that. Once it was good and dry, we started to final train this thing into being the bow. What you're doing, you flex the bow limb, you're bending the bow limb, and where the wood doesn't bend, you take off wood. Where it's bending, you leave it alone. But there's a dilemma. You need to take off long blending scrapes, because you don't want dips. You know, if you can't just scrape like in one area here without creating a concaved area, which is going to be a weak spot. You need to blend that whole limb in, and that's difficult to do if you just want wood removed from this area right here. But it can be done. You just kind of blending it into the limb, scrape and blend it back in. That's why you see me doing a lot of this scraping and then a little sanding. I'm blending it back in with this heavy sandpaper.
cut my quarters off. That's wood removal. You don't want to leave those. That's wood that's coming off of the bow limb. So you might as well go ahead and get rid of it. Blend those tips in. And flex it again. That's a great deal better, Rob.
And we was training the limbs to bend around enough evenly, scraping long scrapes and evenly until we could get a string on it. And you never pulling it full, you never stressing this thing. If you want a 60-pound bow, you don't pull this thing 70 pounds. You got to ease this thing into a bow. Just take your time and work at it real slowly and let this thing become a bow. Make little short pulls in between. You know, it's okay to pull it, you know, if you want a 60-pound bow, it's okay to pull it to 60 pounds at, you know, 20 inches or so. If I got a 26-inch draw, but you don't want to pull it past that. Work this thing down gradually until you get, you know, take off a little wood. If it's too strong, take off a little wood. Keeping everything balanced. Okay, if you hit 60 pounds at 23 inches, you know wood's got to come off. Take off a little more wood and pull it down. Okay, you went down to 24 inches. Well, it's 60 pounds. You want 60 pounds? Take off a little more wood. Go on down. Keep it balanced. That's the way this thing works. And you get it on down to 26 inches at 60 pounds and the limbs are balanced, you're there. You're there pretty much. What I like to do is allow a few pounds for break-in. You know, I like to actually tiller it to about 25 inches. That's an inch shorter than my draw. And I have a lot of success with that. And is allowing another inch of draw for break-in. You'll see us build this string for this bow. This string is built out of tendon. You'll actually see this tendon string being made and twisted up. They're super strings. I'm making this string, I'm going ahead and twisting in a loop right now. There's the diameter of the string. It's a little overbuilt, but you know, on sinew strings and stuff, and it's wet, it's a little swollen. You just see me dampen it. It ain't really soaked, but it'll dry up some and reduce its diameter some. I would rather have it overbuilt just a hair than underbuilt. So I'm twisting it. As you can see, you kind of twist the fiber in one direction and clockwise, then roll it counterclockwise. Take the other, it's a, you know, two different bundles there, and roll it clockwise, then twist it counterclockwise. And most of you guys know this stuff. See, you twist a sinew string just like you do twisting up dacron or linen flax or whatever like that. You formed your, that's my loop distance right there. It's kind of a small loop, and it'll shrink up even more. And the two tapers will come back into the main body of the string, and just to line up like that, which is pretty neat. And all that'll kind of taper back in, and I'll just keep rotating. Gets pretty bulky right in here. It looks really bad and bulky. Of course, the sinew is stretched, swollen, and even on a Flemish splice dacron string, it's bulky right below the knock. There's your knock loop for your knock on your bow. But it'll taper back into the original diameter of that loop in just a minute when we get past all this. Alright, the string is starting to be made. As you go, you add in fibers. You don't add in bundles, you just add in individual fibers as you go, or maybe several fibers. Kind of dampen your fiber a bit and get it pliable, and you can splice it right on in. A lot of people try to lay it where it goes back in. I don't.
I just pull it up and I'll clip it off later. It ain't going nowhere once it gets locked in. That locks it in right there. It will not come out. It still feels a little bit too small. Needs another fiber. That's just the way this string making is. You just have to stay on top of it till you finish this string. Keeping diameter the same is the whole art of string making, I can tell you right now. And these little ends, like I just spliced in, can be taken off later. That's not a problem. You locking them in, when you twist these things in, you're locking them suckers in, and they will not come out after the sinew string is dried, and they just become part of the string. And that's how you manipulate the diameter of your string, is by those little tiny fibers and the length. And we're going along pretty good here. Everything looks pretty much the same diameter. I'm gaining some headway now. Now I'm gonna have to add. Points coming where I gotta add, because the string's gonna get reduced in diameter. I'm gonna feel one bundle is smaller than the next, or larger, and one's gonna run out before the other one. You see down here, I only got a couple little fibers. I'll just add in as I go. Okay, I'm putting in I wanted to show this. I'm still splicing in fibers here. This ain't nothing unusual. What it is, this side and this side got a little small in diameter. So I'm splicing in fibers on both sides and bringing my string diameter up on both sides at one time here. Okay, we got our sinew string twisted up all the way. You see the splices in it right here. It got a little small diameter right here at the end, but of course it's way too long. You know, the string gets back the right diameter here and goes up probably 76 inches or so of string. We got a 62-inch bow. We just got it draped over this limb and twisted up with some weight. It's just a gourd here with some water in it. Water's pretty heavy, and a stone there. And it's just twisted and another string tied to keep it from unspinning. We just let it dry. I'll come back later and I'll clip all these little splices. All these are splices, and they'll be clipped off, and then we'll grease the string. But what you're looking at is a sinewed back cedar bow with a tendon string. Hopefully we can take a deer later with this bow. We may not get to it, but anyway, you'll see a deer killed with a self bow. But these bows are highly capable of taking game, believe me. They wasn't used here in the southeast so much because of the humidity. They were used more out west where it's a drier climate, and you know, they use a lot of conifer trees or yew or juniper, cedar for making their bows, which needed a stronger back. And you've seen it out on the plains where they needed shorter bows. That was highly stressed because they were short, something they was going to shoot off of a horse. They sinew back them to keep them from breaking and to give them more power. But here in the east, the self bows like this were dominant, you know, out of black locust and out of hickory. You didn't see Osage too much. You've seen that out west, but this is an Osage bow. This is actually an eastern style bow with made out of Osage. So, you know, that's what you're looking at. Environment use. Here's the little bow with the sinew string. Is strung up now. It's got more of a circular tiller because it's a pyramid bow. You're getting a lot of work out of this part of the bow. The bow shoots good. It's really a nice shooter. That's pretty much it. Old Ishi said you could tell the quality of the bow by the way it sounded, that it needed a good high pitch, you know, early tension, and this one's got it. It'll shoot. All right, now you see the string. That's the sinew string.
You've seen us make it earlier where it's on the bow. It's braced up fairly low now. We'll just tighten it up. We're gonna shoot it a few times and see what happens, and then I'll brace this thing up a little higher and shoot it, because I don't like shooting one quite this low. But I tell you, if you can get away with good arrow flight while leaving your bow braced low, it's a lot better for a primitive bow. I touched it. You see that? Paralyze that one. That was a paralyzer shot. That old blunt just knocked the life out of it. It's just sitting there, just shaking. I had to finish it off with a rabbit stick. Branch got me too. Old blunts do the trick. Rabbit stick always works too. You can throw these things at rabbits, but I usually use them to finish off a rabbit or small game, especially something that's got teeth. But they're really good tools. Always carry one in my belt when I'm out doing stuff like this, squirrel hunting or rabbit hunting. Let's go cook. We playing around with a cane blowgun, southeastern blowgun. This is tied on with thistleweed. You see it at all the local Indian powwows. A lot better guns than these. This was just a little demonstrator I used to show the kids at school.
Just don't hit my head.
What happened?
What are you doing?
I don't know.
He run out of air.
In flint knapping, the first thing you got to do is find some suitable lithic material.
you know, a rock quarry where you can harvest some stone. This right here you see me holding is Briar Creek Chert. Now we went out and dug up a few big cobbles of this Briar Creek Chert, and what you need to do is fracture the stone down to transportable pieces or spalls, and kind of pre-shape them. What we'll do is you're doing that kind of a twofold thing. You make them to where you reduce all the bulk weight off those, so where you can transport these things, and historically that's what was done. You just don't want to tote around big rocks, you know, so you just shear off these nice pretty pre-tools, and you could trade them. Historically they were traded, or you could heat them. You know, they're in a good form where you could heat them. You know, heat treating stone was done for thousands of years, which makes something hard, as hard as this chert, it makes it more workable. What you do with heat treating, you'll dig a pit, and dig a pit so deep, you know, and make it nice and uniform and flat. If the ground's damp, you want to build a drying fire. I had an ember, made a few extra passes just to guarantee the ember, but you can get it pretty quick most of the time. We got one big bird nest here. There she goes. Hope the wind stays in that direction. And dry the ground out. You don't want anything wet. Dry river sand to go over the top of the first fire. You just spread the hot coals out. Spread them out nice and even. You want it as even temperature as possible. Put you a layer of sand over there, maybe 3/4 of an inch deep to an inch deep. Depends on how hot those coals are. You kind of learn to do this by feel. It ain't something I can really give you a recipe on. You're gonna have to experiment and play with it until you figure out how you can do it, because your spalls will be thicker, your fire will be hotter. It's just something, you know, you got to learn. Put a layer of river sand down and lay your spalls down on top of that. It's not hot enough it's going to start busting anything right off unless you just had a tremendous fire. And the drying fire, you don't want to be, you know, a tremendous fire. Then you can come back and cover those blanks up with the layer of sand. And then you can build a fire on top of that. And this fire is going to be a little more extensive. And the way I do it, I build a little bit fire for my top fire is a little bit heavier. In effect, you got your blanks in between a sandwich of sand. You got heat underneath, 2 layers of sand with your blanks in between and heat on top. And now this fire, you got to judge it. You know, how big is your fire? How hard is the wind blowing? How much heat you think you're producing? You learn to do it by feel again. We heat the stone, and once you heat the stone, you got to let this thing burn down and cool off, and it may take a couple of days till it actually cools down. If it comes a rain shower, you're in trouble. You're going to lose that rock. So make sure you kind of try to gauge it when you got a good dry spell coming. Anyway, that's heat treating. Makes it much easier to work your tools, and it's much easier on your body. It makes prettier tools. Some stones don't have to be heat treated, like obsidian. You see these points right here make really good knife blades for cutting. They make really good arrow points.
you know, for killing deer, something about that size, to kill a deer any day of the week. They're all made in the same fashion out of a spall, but this stuff don't have to be heat treated. A lot of stuff don't have to be heat treated. This stuff was heat treated. You see how glassy it is, but in its original form, it's not like that. You see the comparison. This is unheated, this has been heated. And it gets a luster to it, real pretty luster, and it's a lot easier to work. To make a nice point like this, or even a small arrow point, it's all the same principle. You're taking it out the center of the stone. Now you can knock off a nice thick flake, but still basically this thing's still kind of coming out the center. That way you can knock off everything and true this thing up and get a nice straight piece right out the center that's not curved, because the flakes usually come off kind of in a curved shape. So if you can take a blocky piece and shear off everything, you know, you're way ahead of the game, even for making pre-tools and for making you know, a finished point. It's all the same principle. What you're looking for to start with is natural platforms like this right here, this angle. You would grind and strengthen all this, and you can shear with the antler and hit and shear off this bulk underneath, all this undesired stuff underneath. Now some of this stuff will come off large enough you could take it and turn it into tools and flint knap it into tools. If you don't have a platform, you have to make one. You see all this back here. I wanted to remove all this thick stuff back here. There's nothing there where I can hit it with the proper angle, so I could come in here and chip down and create an artificial platform where I could shear this bottom off, this big thick stuff. It's all about angles. You see, here's a natural platform. You see, if I wanted to shear this off, you know, off underneath the bottom, we're not going to get super in depth with all this, but you know, having that angle and hitting that thing at the right desired depth inside that angle and having the right bevel to this thing and the amount of pressure, and you can shear large flakes off. And it's just the same thing over and over and over. When you see me making the arrow point I'm making is an obsidian point, and I pick up a pretty blocky ugly piece of obsidian that's thick and has all kind of weird sides to it, as you notice. And then I start with a percussion instrument. Flint knapping is percussion, and it's pressure flaking. You will not start with pressure flaking. You start with percussion, and you see me trying to get a pre-tool, just like I was doing earlier when I was collecting the chert rock. I'm getting a little preform or a pre-tool out the center of this blocky piece of ugly obsidian. I'm shearing off all the undesirable. Of course, I got to use the proper angles and the proper platforms. You see me grinding a lot. I'm doing a lot of grinding because you don't want brittle edges, because they'll collapse under the impact of the antler, and you won't shear a flake off pretty. It won't travel right. So you see all the grinding, and the grinding's done from the beginning to the end of making a point. Right before the final sharpening of making a little point like this, you'll grind it before you final sharpen it, so it ain't crunching and it ain't going to be brittle up under the point of your antler when you're sharpening this thing. That's called pressure flaking. Now, you see me using percussion flaking. I'll use percussion flaking to make 90% of the point, and then I revert to a technique called pressure flaking, and you see me using a little tool which has a copper point on it, or a deer antler point. I use both. I like the deer antler especially on obsidian because it don't slip as easy, but the little copper tools was used historically. I don't have a problem with using them, and you find all kind of copper implements in Europe and North America where they were used by Aboriginal cultures. So you'll see me when I final do the percussion, you'll see me start to pressure flake this thing, and you kind of shaping the shape of it and thinning it even further and truing it up into a straight, pretty form. And you like an arrowhead or knife blade to be lenticular in shape. This little tool right here has that same lenticular shape with the sharp edges and the concave sides there, and the thick ridge down the middle. which gives it a good strong backbone. After all the shaping's done, you want to cut in your notches. And cutting in your notches, it's just trimming in with your antler. It's the same thing. You're using platforms, you're using angles, and you just keep, working from one side to the next, keeping your angles, your platforms. If you ever lose it, then you'll round out in here and you won't be able to continue your knocks on in and get good, nice, deep knocks like you want. Flint knapping takes a lot of patience and a lot of practice to get to where you can make nice functional tools. There's a lot of guys out there make pure artwork. I don't. I make tools that I can skin deer with, and I make tools that I can shoot deer with, and make them sharp and make them durable. They don't have to be artwork. But you see, it's a little bit of a process to make. There's definite steps you take from A to Z in reduction, from a big blocky piece or a nice pretty flake, whatever. There's still these definite steps that you take, using angles, grinding, using percussion, using pressure, and final notching, grinding, and then the final sharpening of the arrow point. And if you got to heat treat your material, in the case of this chert, I mean, you may have to do all that before you get into even trying to make a point. So that's basic flint knapping, and that's the type of points that we made and tools we made that we used in the harvest of the whitetails on this video. This is some real beautiful scenery right here. If you look down this Blackwater Creek, all these big cypress trees, just beautiful. And a lot of times, we just go out to hunt. I mean, you can just go out to hunt and just enjoy the scenery and commune with nature, I guess, to say. I had a fella tell me one time, I was fishing, and he said, "Did you do any good fishing today?" And I said, "Nah, I didn't. I really enjoyed myself though." He said, "Let me tell you something, boy.
He said, you communing with nature, right? I said, I guess you might say that. He said, if you get a fish on the line, you can commune a whole lot better. And I kind of like that, you know. I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of days out in the woods hunting where I didn't get anything. And what I'm leading up to here is you don't have to get something to enjoy. Man, it sure makes it a really nice day when you do. And my communing level gets a little bit higher when I do see deer and take deer, I can tell you. But we went out last year, one particular day. We had took off several days to hunt, and it got really hot and nasty. The wind swirling, and it really got too hot for buckskins. I got down to a t-shirt and that type of thing and really didn't like it, but that's what I was hunting with, just to stay cool. But this cold front was coming in, and the wind started blowing, and it threatened to come in and get nice, and we kept praying the cold front would get here, and gun season was looming around the corner a few days away, and I wasn't looking forward to that. But this one particular evening, the rut was on, and hot or not down here in the south, we went and set up in a place we had found a good acorn branch, and we set up, and I seen a little buck. It was really windy, like I say, and it was hard to see, but I caught a glimpse of a little buck running a doe through the thicket, and they were going away from us. So I said, well, that's par for the course, you know, because all week long we had seen little deer, and we'd had some real close encounters with little deer. And you know, when the wind's swirling and your scent's going everywhere, about the only chance you go get is yearling deer or something. And we had enough of that, but we didn't want to shoot nothing like that. And but this whole doe finally, just about the time I thought they were going away, Rob was behind me with the camera. The old doe turned, and the buck was on her, and here she come. She got way ahead of the buck, and I decided, well, I was shooting this doe, and she come up there, and I had to grunt to her and stop her. And it looks on the video like I got a lot of time to shoot, but it was just, you know, a small area there. It was do or die. But I had a clearing to shoot, a good clearing. It was a steep angle, but not severely steep. And I got the arrow in her good, and went to the far shoulder, and she took off. And I tell you, I knew that was a deadly hit.
But here's my hunting head, cane arrow, obsidian point, old trusty Osage bow. We hope to get a deer, shot at a deer right out here in front of us here. There's a little logging road here, and the oats cross the logging road. It's a perfect place if we kind of low. It's almost like ground hunting. I hope we don't get seen, but the wind's good. So maybe we'll get lucky. We're shooting doe or trophy buck, because that's all we can shoot here. Nice shot. That was a nice shot.
It was. That was a little buck. I seen him running it. I think I heard it crash. It wasn't a big buck.
My heart's going.
Feel mine goddamn. It was a nice shot, though.
That was a beautiful shot.
Yeah. Ankle forward into the lungs.
Right.
Yeah, just about the right height.
All right.
Arrow's still good.
Head's gone.
All I gotta do is put a new head on. Hey, there's my deer.
All right.
There's my deer.
Hey.
Good deer too, though. Oh man, look at the blood over here. Did I bust her lungs or what?
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Number 16.
Nice job.
Oh boy, big fat doe. Well, people, that's number 16 with a primitive bow and river cane arrow, flint pointer, obsidian point. You see the type of gear used. You see the results. The deer ain't went well, Rob, scan back to the trees. Scan back to the China berries. That's where we shot her, just on the other side of China berries. That's not 100 yards, that's not 80 yards. See there?
Just past that big pine.
Yeah,
over there.
just past the, right on the other side of the pine.
Yeah.
It may be 80 yards, you reckon? I doubt it. Maybe 80.
Yeah, maybe 80
Maybe.
yards.
We got a big doe here. Look here. Where I hit her. She died within oh yeah, it was pretty extreme. Oh, but it went down in there, see? Rob, that angle was serious.
Perfect.
See, it went down in there.
Perfect angle.
I had a real severe angle on this old doe. But I took it and I made a good shot. You see how bloody she is, which I really don't like looking at that much, but I killed her. That's part of hunting. A buck was running her, and he wasn't much to him. I seen him first. The doe done got past my vision, and here they come, and she come flying in. It happened real quick, and she was worried about him, and she went past my shooting lane. And I had to grunt to her. As you can hear it on video, I grunted to her and stopped her, and then popped her with the old Osage orange recurve with the river cane arrow, number 16, which don't mean nothing, but it just shows the effectiveness of the gear. And guess what? We got some skinning to do with a stone knife and all that kind of stuff to do.
Works ahead of us.
Works ahead of us, as always. Deer hunting's work. Well, you've seen the results of that hunt. You've seen how deadly a stick bow and a primitive arrow can be, and that was a really special evening and a rewarding hunt. We took the deer and we had a feast on the deer. The whole club had a feast there, and We saved the sinews and saved the hide and the whole 9 yards, and it was really an enjoyable day. You know, not every hunt that you do goes exactly like you want it. If you've been hunting for, if you've been hunting for a career, I mean, you've had a lot of years under your belt hunting. You've had some hunts that didn't go the way you wanted them to exactly. Early that morning, we seen a spike buck and another deer I couldn't identify, and then this doe comes in, and she's walking straight in, go give me the perfect broadside shot. And I actually had a string coming back, but like I say, things don't always go like you want them to. Just about the time I got some string tension, and that's about all I had was just string tension, she turned. And she comes straight at me. And I had to shoot basically, not straight down, but it was a little closer. I don't like a shot so close like that. And I shot a little bit high and put a stone point right in the spine of this deer. Well, the deer went down just like she was spined with a 270 rifle. I mean, she hit the ground just that hard. If you don't think that stone point is a serious weapon, then you'll see this video. This deer hit the ground hard. And I had people for years ask me, Thad, what happened? Because a lot of bow hunters, if you know a bunch of bow hunters, they've all spined a deer now and then. Not that they want to, but it happens. And they said, what happens, you think, if you spine one with the stone tip? You think it's going to break when it hits that bone and the deer's just going to run away? And I said, well, I ain't never spined one, but, I found out that day. Of course, I took another arrow real quick and put the deer, out, and took the deer out clean and fast as I could. And we took that deer and processed the deer and smoked the meat, cut the sinews out of the deer. We actually skinned the deer out with stone tools, and we didn't even use a hafted knife. We just used stone flakes and built a drying rack with primitive string I'd made from some yucca, and just watch and you'll see what we done. And I tell you what, that was actually the first deer we had killed with stone tipped arrow and primitive bow on the video. And I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was really something. Oh man, a spider. Give me there. That's pretty good doe, Rob. She'll probably go That's all the way to the other shoulder, Rob. Look at there. Ooh, come out the other side. Look. That's the difference of sharp arrowhead and a dull one. See, that was stuck up in the ground on the other side. That's all it is. But I got one, I think, in her spine. I know there's one in her spine. But that wasn't like I wanted it to go. But you can't always have it like you want it to go. Hey Rod, that's one of the Cahokia points. That's notched up from the bottom and side notched.
You know, in processing this deer, I wanted to do it in Atlatl fashion, so I went out and got some bear grass leaves to make string, and it makes string in its crudest form. But we built a drying rack and we laced it together with bear grass leaves, and this was to cut the meat off the deer and to make jerky, to air dry the jerky. And once we got our frame built, then I built a friction fire and hand spun a fire, and so this would smoke the meat and give it flavor and keep the insects away. Now, I wanted to skin this deer with stone flakes. It wasn't the first deer that I ever skinned with stone flakes, and all I did was use flakes like this to skin the whole deer. No hafted knife, no knife like this with a handle. I wanted to show that you could do it basically with stone tools in its most primitive form. I skinned the whole deer just with flakes like this and cut out the tendon and cut up the meat with simple flakes like this. And that was our whole purpose, was to kill a deer with stone tools, with primitive bow and arrow, to skin the deer with simple flakes, to create a friction fire, to dry the meat, smoke the meat, air dry and smoke the meat like it was done for millennia, and then to take the hide and turn it into clothes. And that's what we did with that deer, and it was really a lot of fun. buckskins. This is some unbelievable stuff. Durable, soft, comfortable. This was the, I don't know how long man's been wearing buckskins or using buckskins, and it was almost universal in any cold climate. I mean, you know, Europe or the Americas or wherever. I mean, Native Americans here, this is famous. I mean, you know, you never see any kind of Hollywood stuff without Native Americans wearing buckskin. Well, this was the stuff to wear in cold climate. It's warm, it breathes. It's not really leather. We'll explain that in a few minutes. Really, to me, it's more like kind of like a wool. But you know, colonial times in America, this was the dress of everybody. Colonial pioneers was wearing this stuff. It was a big trade too in colonial America. The Creek Indians here was you know, taking deer and brain tanning the skins and trading them to Europeans or Americans, which was trading them to Europeans or selling them. Just out of Savannah, Georgia, I think in about a 20-year period, over 2.5 million pounds of deer skins were shipped just out of Savannah Harbor. That's not counting Charleston and everywhere else. It was a kind of a symbol of America to show their independence from England, that they didn't need England's woven fabrics, that they had their own, you know, material for making clothes. I don't think buckskins went out because it wasn't wasn't good clothing. It's excellent clothing. It went out because of the amount of labor it took to produce. You know, buckskins is real labor intensive. Don't, you know, fool yourself that you can make buckskins in traditional fashion without a bunch of labor. It is a bunch of labor. I think that's what doomed it. After, you know, denims and all those type of things was created, the buckskins went out. You got this hide, it's bloody, it's got a lot of meat on it, it's not very pretty. You got a fleshing beam, you know, so you drape your hide across the beam and you want a dull draw knife, a dull butcher knife will work. You don't want it sharp. You just want to scrape off the meat. It's called fleshing. When you're fleshing the skin, be thorough. Flesh off every inch of that meat and mucus and blood and all that. Get it all off of there. The better job you do, the neater and cleaner your rest of your work's gonna be. Way back, man used bone and stone tools for the fleshing. They'll work. They'll work fine. You can use them too. I advise the first brain tanning that you do, use a dull draw knife or a dull butcher knife. Then after a few skins, if you want to go ahead and start experiment with bone tools, you know, rib bones were used for scraping. You gotta grind those down till they have a sharp edge. You can't get them too sharp. So, you know, put the best edge you can on them. And if you want to experiment with that, go ahead, by all means. But do a thorough job with your fleshing. After fleshing the skin, you need to buck the skin or soak the skin in fire ash. You need to swell the skin up. And fire ash is a primitive lye. What you do is burn down a fire like we got right here and take all the white ash off of it. So I get several buckets of it just to make sure I got enough. And you mix it with water, and to make sure that the consistency's right, you can float an egg in the fire ash to make sure you got enough fire ash, that your lye is strong enough or not too weak or whatever. You can float an egg in there, and when it's floating to where you see about a quarter size, that's all you can see is the circumference of a quarter on that egg where it's floating in the water. It's about right. You can soak your skin in that solution, and you want to move it around, you know. Soak. It depends on the weather. It depends on the temperature. You know, if it's really cold, this skin's gonna have to soak. I mean, it may soak 6-7 days. Usually 3 days to do it in the proper temperature. You know, in the spring or in the fall, 3 days to do it. To swell the skin up is what you're trying to do. Move it around every day and let the fire ash really get to it. And it's that lye do its job. And what happens is that skin swells up.
and it gets almost like a piece of rubber. And the hair's already lifting, the hair's falling out. Everybody asks me, Dad, how do you get the hair out to make these buckskins? How do you get the hair? Well, the hair just falls out in the bucking process. That's nothing you really got to concern yourself about. What you do have to concern yourself about is that layer underneath the hair. And it's grain. It's called grain in the hide. Now, it's where the work starts, part of it anyway. You need that same dull draw knife or tool, butcher knife or whatever you're going to use, and you put your skin back over the log and you start scraping again, and you're scraping the hair side. Now the hair's just falling off, you'll see, and you can tell when you go deep enough the actual grain has a different color to it. It's a different layer on top of the fiber, and all this is the fiber inside of the skin. This fiber actually had a grain on it. If you ever look at modern leather and it looks kind of shiny, that's the grain. It don't breathe. You don't want that on your buckskin. You want it off. It's hard to scrape off. You have to get pretty physical. You have to put some muscle into it. And you'll see it coming off, and you'll see that white fiber underneath. You can tell what you're doing once you swell this thing. That's the whole purpose in swelling up the hide. You can tell exactly what's coming off and where it needs to come off, and every bit of that grain needs to come off of this thing. Now, once you got all the grain off, you got to start membraning. Then all that is you turn the hide over, and now you can take, there's another layer of material which you can barely see. It's all, usually you just got to break it up, and you don't have to take off every fraction of it, but you need to scrape it again and scrape off the membrane off. That's the flesh side now, where it's attached to the body of the deer. You've already fleshed it, but you need to re-scrape it again and take off the membrane, so it's easier to get once you get off the hair and the grain. So re-scrape it again, and you'll see it being done, and all that membrane coming off, because that stuff will dry hard on both sides, and it keeps the brain from penetrating. So what you want to do now, after you scrape this thing, you done scrape both sides thoroughly, is to rinse this skin for at least 24 hours. You know, graining a skin and membraning a skin, you might could do it in an hour. It might take you, 3 hours. It might take a beginner longer than that. Depends on your physical strength and your focus and how hard you're going to work at it and how many breaks you take. But just be thorough and do a thorough job. Now, you got to rinse that fire ash back out of this buckskin so it'll go back down and be limber again, because it's still stiff and kind of rubbery like. And it's swollen, so you want it to shrink back down. Running water, if you can put it in a running river, a running stream, a little brook or something, just tie it to a limb or something and let the water agitate it and rinse all that fire ash back out of it. I've done it in a bucket with a water hose. You can do it that way. The water exchanging itself overnight, you'll be amazed. That skin will shrink back down. It'll be just like the skin that you originally took off the deer without all the other stuff. It'll be limber and pliable. Okay. Now, you want to wring the skin out. And that means, putting it on a bar, draping it over a wooden bar, and you roll it up kind of like a tube. And it's pretty easy. It's a little method where you roll it around, make a tube out of it, and roll it from both ends together. Then you can stick another stick in there, and you can wring this thing, and you wring all the moisture out of it. It's kind of like a sponge. You want your brain to be able to penetrate this skin. So if it's totally saturated with water, the brain solution can't get in the fibers like you want. So if you squeeze it out, you squeeze out all that extra water. It's kind of like a sponge. It will soak up moisture. A sponge that's been wrung out, it'll still soak up moisture over and over. So it's good to wring your skin out really good. And there's going to be thick areas like around the neck and the rump where you might want to throw it back on the fleshing beam and take your knife and squeegee the water out, in places that you didn't get good wringing it, because there's going to be spots you couldn't get good. And then the skin has an even moisture content from one end to the other. You know, your thin areas around the belly and your thick areas around the neck and all have basically the same moisture content. It's damp, but you have got all the excess water out of it, so it will soak up the brain solution. Now you want to I like to take about a pound of brains and cook them slightly just to be on the safe side because of bacteria or whatever, and just cook them till they're lightly pink. And then I mix it with a couple of cups of you know, warm water and make kind of a brain soup. And you can take your skin and put it right down after you done squeegee the skin out, and you can put it right down in this brain soup and stretch it and pull it and mash it, and you know, just make sure this brain soup goes through all the fibers. Do what you can do to make it happen. I like to pull it back out, put it on my bar, make another tube out of the skin, wring it out, and wring out your solution where it goes back into your bucket. I like to do it 5 or 6 times until I know I got that brain solution, you know, penetrated all the fibers in that hide. And what you're trying to do, that brain has oils, and those oils will penetrate between all the little fibers in there. Now you've seen us making glue. Now there's glue still in this skin. So if I didn't get all those oils in between all those little fibers, I wouldn't be able to break the skin. So I got to make sure that I got every square inch of this skin just saturated with this brain oil, all in between these fibers. If I took that skin without braining it and just threw it over to the side, it would get rawhide again. It would get hard as a rock. Even if I brained it and threw it over to the side and let it dry, it would dry hard as a rock with the brain in it. Well, here's the trick. Here's the trick of breaking. Once I got my brain, I'm confident I've got enough brain or enough oils and you know, lubricants in between all the little microscopic fibers in this skin, and that's all that's left is the fiber now. Then I can start pulling on this skin. And you go slow at first because the skin's still really wet. Now the last time you brain it, you want to squeeze out all the brain you can. And you want to squeegee out all the moisture that you can. So it'll start drying. Really, I find it best to break skins under about 75 to 80 degrees with a little slight wind. That's optimum. You know, the drying conditions ain't too harsh. And you know, if it's too cold, it's going to take forever to dry. If it's too humid and hot, it's going to take forever to dry. Those conditions are just perfect. So think about the time of the year that you want to brain tan, and think about the time of the day that you want to do it. And because you don't want it drying too fast where it's really hard, because you got to keep up with this thing. It's going to start to try to dry on you. And you got to keep pulling on this skin with this brain solution, you know, that you've already squeezed all you can out of it. You've reduced all the moisture out of it the last time you pulled it out the brain, and got it as dry as you can with the stick and the squeegee bar. Then you start kind of pulling, but go easy at first. Like I say, time yourself and kind of work the skin, and you'll see it starting to dry a bit. Keep pulling the skin, keep moving it. You got to keep moving it continuously until it's completely soft, and it'll be completely white and soft and feel beautiful. And it'll feel like the best piece of material you ever felt in your life if you do it proper. If it comes out a little stiff, you can rebrain it. You know, you can start over and rebrain it. You don't want to have to do that. So make sure you do a good braining. You squeegee out all the brain, and you pull on that sucker until you want to pull on it until it's completely dry. And don't just say where I think it's dry. You can feel it if it's still damp. You can feel the skin. It still feels kind of cold or clammy. And if it's stretching, if it's still got any stretch when you're stretching it, then it still needs to be pulled. I mean, any stretch, a little bit of stretch. You hadn't broken it yet. You can actually hear it when it starts breaking. You can hear it making a weird kind of a breaking sound. I do it mostly over my knee, which you'll see. I got a cable that I use that kind of abrades the hide, which is kind of important because a lot of times the surface of the skin will start to dry. It forms a film on the surface, kind of like a toast. and the inside's wet and the outside's dry, so you're never able to dry it, to pull it and dry it completely. This outside drying on you needs to be abraded. So you can take some sandstone, or that cord abrades it, or you can take some pumice and periodically buff your skin to buff off that little surface area that's trying to dry on the outside, so the inside can breathe and dry itself, so it don't take forever to you think it's dry by feeling it on the outside, but the inside's still wet. So make sure you abrade your skin periodically as you're stretching it. If you can get 2 or 3 people involved, man, it takes a lot of the work out of that thing. It's a lot of work. If you're going to make a buckskin jacket like this, that wasn't just one skin. It takes a few skins to do it. Now once you get this skin just completely soft and dry, it won't stay that way until you smoke it. If you was to take that skin in that state and throw it in the river and then pull it back out, it would get hard again, unfortunately. It's pretty, it's soft, it's broken, but you got to keep it in that state. So the way to do that is to smoke it. Now smoking is almost magic. Once you smoke the skin, it'll stay this way. This buckskin will stay this way forever. It smells really strong. I like the way it smells. A lot of people, it's offensive to them. They don't like it. It's too strong. But the smell kind of leaves in time. So what I'll do, I'll take I usually get 2 skins that I've broken soft. They're white, they're soft, they're broken. They don't have any hard spots. They're ready to smoke. And I'll dig a hole in the ground. I dig a hole about this deep, and the hole may be this big around. I'll build a fire out of hardwood logs like oak or hickory, and oak is really the best. And then when they burn down in the coals, before the flames, while the flames are still licking on them, you don't want them burned down to nothing but just coals. I like it when the fire's still on them. I'll transport them down in my hole, and I'll fill my hole up about 1/3 of the hole, about this deep, with nothing but hardwood ashes, embers, coals, and they're really at their optimum. They're still licking with fire, and I'll put them down in that hole. Now, the rest of the hole gets filled up with punk wood, and punky wood ain't nothing but dry, rotten wood. You use any that you want. I use a lot of dry, punky cypress. I like the way it works. It's got a little bit of resinous content to it, but not much. You never even realize it. It really puts a good smell in my clothes. I like it, and gives clothes a good color. You see these nice, rich, dark colors here. It varies in its coloration, which I think is really good natural camo. I don't worry about it. Some gets a little smoked, a little heavier than the other sections. Don't worry about it. I like the way it looks. But what you'll do is, that punky wood smoke, it won't catch on fire. It'll just create a lot of smoke, and it'll smoke efficiently. And you'll create a rack where you can suspend I take 2 of those nice hides, and you can glue them together, actually. You can glue them with animal glue around the edges, and just lay the edge, just wipe a seam of animal glue all the way around the edges, and glue your 2 skins together. And leave an open spot where you can put that down over the hole. You can use a smoking sack. You can use a smoking sack that you can pin to the 2 skins. It's kind of a buffer in case the thing flamed up, and it will flame up if you don't stay right with it. You have to stay right with this smoking hole and keep testing it with your hand and feeling for hot spots. When you feel a hot spot, you put more punky wood in it and kind of smother it out. Just let it smoke. Don't let it get hot and flame up. The smoking sack will trap the smoke, and it'll go up into the 2 skins that you got glued together with your animal glue. It'll wash out of your skins, so don't worry about it. You're going to wash your skins later anyway. And the animal glue will wash out, and you never knew you glued them together. And it's a lot easier than trying to sew them. I used to try to sew them together. That's a bunch of work. So just glue them together with animal glue, let them dry, and put a smoking sack. You can use for a smoking sack some old buckskin if you want to use. That's probably what was used historically, but I just use a piece of canvas, and you'll see it. You could use a piece of jeans leg or something, just a funnel that attaches to your two skins and goes down over the hole, over the smoke hole, and catches the smoke and funnels it up into your skins. Now that smoke is full of formaldehydes and resins, and it penetrates the fibers the same way the brain penetrated the fibers. Now you got all this formaldehyde and resins that's coated these fibers in this smoke, and you can all these skins here have been washed. You know, I take and wash them with ivory soap, a natural soap, or you can make a soap out of you know, yucca root or buckeye root or whatever. You can make a natural soap if you want to do that. Or you can just use a natural, I wouldn't use a harsh detergent. And I would wash them by hand in a natural soap in some warm water and just scrub them up and rinse them out and hang them on the line, and they will not get hard again. They may be stiff a little bit like a pair of jeans. You know how pair of jeans are when you wash them, you hang them on the line, they get a little stiff. But just fluff them back up. You can rub them over a limb, you know, or the arm of a chair or something, and fluff them back up, and you can throw them right back on, and man, they feel great. And they ain't nothing wears better, they ain't nothing's cooler, and you know, there ain't a finer way to use your deer, you know, and to use more of your deer instead of just wasting your deer. I mean, I really kind of got to the point where I hate to see people just throw their deer skins in a hole and you know, and waste them in that manner. And you know, brain tanning is an excellent way to extend that and to use more of the deer than just the meat. See, you start out with this anchor, and that's just a kind of a design that's cut on the lacing, and just stitch it up. And that's what you see us doing now. I'll show one on my foot here in a minute when I get this thing finished. Well, you see, the old mock needs to be wet and worn. So it'll fit my foot just perfect. Just wet them down and wear them till they dry. It's sewed up and ready to go. If you pan back up here on the table, you'll see some of the other stuff that was made. You see me wearing the jacket earlier in the video. Really soft. Wore it last hunting season some, not every day. The pants to match. There they are. And got a belt sewed into the whole deal. Got them old Kentucky buttons and the deer antler buttons. And you see the belt lashes around and actually hooks up right here. It's a neat, strong way to hold everything. Everything's laced up with deer skin, as you can see. There's the pants. There's the jacket. The vest you see me wearing, and the other shoe finished off to match the one I got on my foot. Hey man.
Hey.
You hunting around here?
Yeah, I'm hunting there back a piece.
Darn. You doing any scouting?
Scouting? Shoot, no. My equipment does my scouting.
What do you mean? How does your equipment do your scouting?
Well, let me show you. See this here heads-up display?
Huh?
I got 12 external radio frequency cameras mounted on my game trails. Whenever any game comes up, it comes in the picture. Sends an electronic signal to this vibrate device I have in my pants and wakes me up when I go to shoot.
What?
Yes, sir.
There's a vibrating device in your pants?
Yeah, that's what wakes you up when you're sleeping.
Darn, it's in there. Is that a real bow?
Real bow. That's an EXTREME BS Nighthawk 1000.
Nighthawk 1000.
Yes, sir. Comes with a flashlight on the front.
What is this device?
An external game calling device.
It calls game?
Yeah, check this out.
Darn. What else it do?
You don't like that one? Try this one. Got all kind of buttons on there. Listen to this. Oh, that's the wrong button there. Sorry about that. That's not the right one there.
Darn, what does that gizmo cost?
Oh, you can lay into one of these for under $5 grand.
$5 grand?
Yeah, but it's got 150% let off. You know, when you go to pull it back, you just gotta make sure it don't hit you in the face. Push back a little bit when you go to pull it back.
You mean it draws itself?
Yeah, and then some. 150% let off. Just make sure you don't, knock yourself in the mouth with it, but it stays back by itself.
Have you ever shot at a deer with that thing?
Yeah, this thing's accurate up to 200 yards now.
200 yards?
Yeah, it shoots about 1,800 feet per second. How about you? You shoot anything today?
Nah, I ain't seen a deer today. I've just been mainly scouting, I gotta find a good place to hunt,
Well, that's good, because I sure you can't hit nothing with that broomstick.
What?
You can't hit nothing with that stick.
Yeah, you can hit something with it. I don't know about your gizmo. You mind if I give that a...
Yeah, how about try on a real bow for a try?
You need to unhook it out of your pants.
Yeah, you want to hook that in, you get a nice vibration.
Nah, I think I'm into that, but I'd like to give it a fling if you don't mind.
Yeah, give it a fling one time. See how she does.
Alrighty. If I ask myself what is hunting all about, being out in the woods and wearing my buckskins and my southeastern puckered mocks here and my quiver and my primitive bow, that's just a big part of it right there. To me, that's an enjoyable part of it. It's just so nice to get out and walk through the woods and enjoy the woods wearing the skins and stuff. It's just like I heard hunting referred to as one time. A lot of people hunt because they want to be more connected to their ancestors, to walk with the ghost of their ancestors. I think that's true to a certain extent.
But we have to look at reality. The world's changed, and we can't go back in time. We'll never go back in time, you know, completely. But I tell you the truth, if you make your own buckskins, your own buckskin clothes, if you make your own primitive bow and arrow, and decide you want to hunt with them, decide you want to do this, and you get serious with it, I guarantee you that first trip you take out in the forest, you'll feel a little bit closer to what your ancestors done. You may understand what they done a little bit better. You may actually feel, just for a few minutes, you may actually feel like you actually went back in time. And getting that feeling is worth the effort. I hope you fellas enjoyed this video. But I got some rubs over here I need to go check. I got to get ready for another hunt. And I'm losing light. So we'll see you on the next hunt, all right?